Sports Syndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
He's Shep. I'm Sean. Shep thus concludes literally the most uneventful Super Bowl I can ever remember. We talked about it last week. The way that game played out surprised absolutely nobody. It is a subtle reminder of how important trenches are, and maybe, just maybe, you should put an impetus on getting after the quarterback and protecting your quarterback. But honestly, I don't know if you felt the same way. It was completely uneventful to me. That's the only word that I have to say. I took in every second of it, but
I know you did.
Just a very uneventful Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to call it was boring, but it was very blah.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I give credit to Mike McDonald and Sam Darnold and Kenneth Walker, who's just a great dude. All those guys. It's not surprising, except if you're out east, like my wife's cousins yesterday. You know, who are you rooting for, Matt? And I said, well, it's not that I'm necessarily rooting for anybody. I think Seattle's going to win. See, that's what we're talking about. Everybody's so disrespectful of us. I said, hold on a second. Just because I pick somebody who plays against you doesn't mean I'm disrespectful of you. I didn't say you don't belong there. I said I think the other team's going to win. Those things happen, okay? But New England was just, overwhelmed. The trenches, I think you're right about that. But remember, New England, they had two rookies in their trenches on the left side of the offensive line. So I think it depends on who you have in those trenches. Like if Detroit's next year, let's just say in the draft, Sean, in the April draft, they select a tackle, Caden Proctor, Alabama, just for a goof. And suddenly he's your left tackle next to Christian Mahogany as your left guard. And then you've got an experienced center and then a second-year right guard and then the all-world Penei Sewell. You've addressed it, but did you address it the right way? So I think a lot depends on that. I thought Seattle's front four. I thought more importantly, Seattle's ability to rush for and get pressure, allow their secondary to do what they have to do more than anything. I mean, Witherspoon came on some blitzes, as you know, but I thought the fact that they could rush for and put pressure on them with four was the biggest difference.
Shep, how many times have guys like us, I honest to God, I'm so sick of having this conversation, and I know you know even more NFL guys than I do, okay? When I hear buzzwords like manufacture a pass rush, do you know what that is saying? We don't believe in our pass rush. We don't have a pass rush. So that is not a good thing. And people throw those words around like all the time. And it's like, honestly, I've been with enough pro, Shep, where they kind of, that cringe, that bitter beer face, if you will, when somebody says manufacture a pass rush. And to me, it's such a great point by yourself. It really, they got after it. They didn't have to mix things up. They didn't have to worry about throw to where the blitz comes from. I mean, they just plumb got after it.
Sean, that's why I think a lot of people, and I get that we're fans, but a lot of people wanted a Trey Hendrickson a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Or now do whatever you can to get Max Crosby, is because of what you saw and the type of wreckage that can come from it. So, for example, Aiden Hutchinson played 91% of the snaps this year. Or was it 94? Max Crosby played 91% or 94. I might have them mixed up, but either one. In other words, they're on the field a lot. Those are the types of guys you need on this defense where they ain't coming out. I get you're going to rotate some DTs, but those guys on the edges, they have to come out or they have to stay in there. And if it means that you can't sign one of your flashy offensive players, then so be it. This is where it is won and lost. And the thing that bothers me, Sean, is this team or this organization, I thought you and I were convinced they were going to the Super Bowl and they're up in San Francisco big.
Yep.
When they did that, and then the next year turned that into a 15-win campaign, you and I both knew the way they built that team was the right way to build a team. And then it's almost like they got caught with a shiny penny moment this past year and realized, oh, maybe we can win a different way. No, You can't. Look at the best teams in football this year. Where was their strength? It was up front.
Shep, I say this all the time. I have said this for probably, I don't even remember when he said it, 16 years ago. And it's really funny because one of the wiseacres on one of the hot take guys was ripping on Tony Dungy over the weekend. And do you know what Tony Dungy's problem is? He's not an a-hole. That's
Correct.
what Tony Dungy's problem is. He's not an a-hole. He doesn't make hot takes. He has the personality of a wall. Those are his problems. You know what he does? He just makes good football points.
Yeah, he's professional.
Yeah, shame on him for being professional and making good football points. But, Shep, I've said it. Tony Dungy on a Sunday night game 15, 16 years ago, he's like, the game's pretty simple. What can your quarterback do to the opposition, and what can you do to get to the opposition's quarterback?
Right.
And, yeah, that's the NFL. There it is. Yeah. I mean, it's like not all-encompassing, but I think that's the best definition of what we're seeing in the National Football League.
What did you and I talk about last week? If New England gets behind the chains, either team, if they get behind the chains, in other words, they're taking sacks, they're taking tackles for loss. If they get behind the chains, that team's going to be in trouble. That's what New England felt like they were doing all night long.
Yep.
Rarely could they move the football. So Tony Dungy's just a pro. He's a great dude. I think Rodney Harrison got after him a little bit because of the Hall of Fame vote. I saw that where he says, you guys, you got it wrong or whatever. But I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
No, there was somebody, I forget who it was. I was looking at clips, and Tony Dungy's the most boring guy ever and stuff like that. Gosh damn it, I can't remember. It was one of those, I don't even want to say their names, but it was one of those places. And I was just laughing going, yeah, because he does a good job, because all he does is talk about the game from his experience from the game. How dare he?
Right, but that person probably wants
team, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that person probably wants Ryan Clark, who just gets up and grabs a soapbox. Seahawks had 6 sacks. Tom, appreciate that very much. Thanks for joining us. Always good to see you. And it did take forever to get a touchdown. You're right, Tom.
Escanaba in the house. If you love field goals, that Super Bowl is your nirvana. From Jason, we've seen back-to-back Super Bowls where the front four completely dominated and won that game. That was my takeaway last year when Philly won the Super Bowl. It was like they made Patrick Mahomes' life miserable, and it's like paging Brad Holmes, Brad Holmes, you know, and now we'll see. There's so much Max Crosby stuff out there, Shep. I listen, I don't think he's going to come here. For all we know, maybe he's playing the Myles Garrett card where he's talking about how he wants to leave, and then they give him a giant lifetime contract, and he goes, I'm happy now. It was all about winning until it's not. But I think the likelihood of that happening here in Detroit is next to none. I hope
just because of the salary cap problems. Look, if you look at it, a lot of the teams outside the Rams, right? The teams that were in the Super Bowl are deep in. Think about their quarterback situation. I mean, Bo Nix, not a big contract. Drake May, not a big contract. Sam Darnold, 3 years, $100.5 million. So not a huge contract. $33 million or whatever is big, but it's not 53. You have gone all in. I don't like that phrase, the window, right? But you've gone all in with your quarterback with $50+ million, $53 million, whatever it is. Then you've got to build it the way he plays, and you've got to help him. I don't think that's earth-shattering. You and I can figure that out. I'm sure Brad Holmes knows that. I just would love to know how they deviated from what has been their success the previous 2-3 years.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Listen, there's a pretty damn good center on the market from Baltimore. Do you mess around with the cap and play the Howie Roseman? We'll worry about that down the line. I mean, there are so many different things to look at. Do you try to make that big splash with a guy up front? James Pierce doing James Pierce things for all the people out there that said we'll take a chance on him last year. And Shep, I openly admit I was one of those guys. Look. All those red flags came up for a reason. What is going on in your mind, man? What is going on in your mind?
Yeah, I can't figure it out. It's interesting about, the center with Tyler Linderbaum. Not Kevin Zeitler, but Frank Ragnow was making $13.5 million, Sean. Linderbaum would probably command more. You have to ask yourself, how much are you willing to give? Is it 15? Is it 16 for a center? But for a guy who's that good, that established and settles everything down. We've seen the alternative. Where's the priority? That's the question.
It's funny. Somebody said, and again, I apologize. I used to be so good at remembering where I saw this stuff.
You're pretty good, John. Pretty good. You got names. You've got names and dates down. Pretty good.
Thank you. But somebody said that it'll be between 17 and 19 for what it's worth. That they think that's where it's going to end up on the market. So
a lot of freaking money, dude, for a second.
Unbelievable. But you know what? I mean, Shep, that was. God bless a lot of the people that we work with at Woodward Sports. They know that I love them, and Lord knows they can call me out on dumb things that I've said the last couple of years. But I felt from day one, a lot of the guys that we work with on Woodward Sports were completely underestimating the impact Frank Ragnow retiring. And Shep, we talked about it here. You could not quantify what that did to the team. You 100%. Couldn't then, and I think we saw it all play itself out.
I would add Kevin Zeitler to that too. Not as big an impact, I don't believe, but I thought losing those two meant more than losing the two coordinators. They were stabilizers, they were ground graders, and they made the person next to them better. And I think that's important, especially had you had an inexperience, whether it be Christian Mahogany or Tate Ratledge, okay? Either one. Like, I wouldn't even have blinked if they still had Zeitler. You drafted Tate Ratledge. Why? Okay, we'll put him at left guard. Okay, whatever. But you're going to make that player, that young player, better. You can help compensate for that. That's why I'm convinced Frank Ragnow, his retirement stunned them. What stunned me is not as much that, as much as their unwillingness to rectify it as quickly as possible.
Yep, no doubt. Random question. Do you remember the first Super Bowl you watched? Do you remember, like, when you first figured? Because I'll go first, Shep. I remember watching Super Bowl 11. It was the Raiders and the Vikings. It was 32-14. I remember watching it, but the first one where I really took it in and knew what it was Super Bowl 12, and it was 27-10 Dallas over Denver. Do you remember the first Super Bowl you watched?
So I do remember that one because Craig Morton was starting for Denver and Roger Staubach and the Cowboys. Prior to that, I remember you're so good at Super Bowl numbers. I just remember teams and who played. So I remember vividly watching the Vikings and the Steelers and the Vikings and the Raiders.
All right. So that would be Super Bowl 9. The Vikings lost to the Steelers 16-6, and then Super Bowl 11 would be that Raiders-Vikings game. That was probably the first one I kind of remember,
Okay, so Super Bowl 9 is what you're saying? Who was in Super Bowl 8, Sean?
Super Bowl 8 was the Miami Dolphins. They won the back-to-back. They beat Washington in Super Bowl 7 and then beat the Vikings in Super Bowl 8.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Vaguely. Just because I love the Vikings. That was the big deal. Okay. So some of the greatest plays. I remember a lot of the plays. I remember some of the NFC Championship games. Like, I remember when Dallas threw that Hail Mary and down there was Sammy White, or not Sammy White, but Drew Pearson against Nate Wright.
Yeah.
And it pissed me off. And Dallas went into the Super Bowl there and beat the Vikings at the Met. Minnesota had home field advantage. So I remember some games like that. I remember when the Oilers played the Steelers and Mike Renfro had a catch in the back of the end zone, and they ruled that it wasn't a catch.
I totally remember that. I totally remember that. Yeah.
I was really pissed off because I loved Earl Campbell, and I was really pissed off about that. If they had instant replay, he would have called. It would have been overturned.
Yeah. And then the next year, remember, they went back and the Steelers it was like 34-5 or some crap like that.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. And they bottled up Earl Campbell. Yeah. I remember all those Steelers and Raiders teams. I can remember, Phil Villapiano and all those great names. And the Vikings. Those were dominating teams at the time.
Isn't it funny? The Vikings went to 3 out of 4 too. I mean, that they lost Super Bowl 8, they lost Super Bowl 9, and they lost Super Bowl 11. People forget they were in 4 of the first 11 Super Bowls. Unfortunately, they didn't win any. But
Joe Kapp was their quarterback early on when they lost to Kansas City.
Yeah,
and then
that's before my time. Yeah, but I know about it.
Yeah, I don't remember those. But Fran Tarkenton was a guy I loved to watch. and I loved Bud Grant. I mean, that was the team that was my favorite team if it wasn't the Lions.
Right.
We all had to have that alternative team. And for me, it was the Minnesota Vikings, and which just seems weird now. But the reason it was is because when I played Little League football, NFWB, North Farmington, West Bloomfield, we were the Vikings.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had Viking uniforms, and I wore number 44 for Chuck Foreman. Just love Chuck Foreman.
Oh, do you remember when he got hit in the face with a snowball? That's another memory from when I was a little kid. They're playing one of those snowball games. I think it was in Buffalo, and somebody drilled him in the face with a snowball.
You're right about that. Yeah.
I don't know why you remember dumb crap like that, but especially when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
Love the Niners Chargers. A lot of fun.
Niners Chargers. Well, that was the Steve Young game against Bobby Ross.
49-26. So that would be Super Bowl 29.
Okay. That was after, like, when I remember, Montana against Marino, 38-16 was the final of that score. And then when the Niners blew out the Broncos 55-10, that was an absolute clinic by Joe Montana and the 49ers.
Young Sean, I am not a betting man anymore, Shep, but I think every neighborhood had their fat man, the guy who took bets, and young Sean put $500 down on the Niners at -8.5. And It was funny. The fat man, it was one of those guys, I like you, kid. I know what your dad does for a living. But you better hope that San Francisco covers this, because I will not hesitate to come after you. Oh, okay, sir. Like that. And then it was like one of those things, like 10 minutes.
What did you get $500?
I didn't have $500. If I lost, I'd have skipped town. Are you kidding me? You just seen my cars going. You could put the bet down, and if I lost that, oh my gosh, I would have been dead. But literally 15 minutes of the game, that was so. Somebody said last night was unwatchable. That was absolutely non-competitive. It was 55-10, and they could have put 90 on them. That was one of those days,
Easy. I watched that at a friend's house. They had a party, and I can be a little prickly around that stuff because I want to watch the game.
Right.
And I said, it's Montana against Elway. I was so fired up to watch this, and there's people talking left and right, and it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll just hang out and talk with people too, because this game is over. Not even close.
Yeah. Dude, you know what? It's just funny. It really is one of those things, Shep, that it is become larger than anything else. There's nothing to compare it to. And I can't help but think of, like, when I realized, like, how big it was. And like for me, I was a little kid. It was that 27-10 game, Dallas and Denver. And, Craig Morton was facing his ex-team and all that stuff. Yep. It's amazing what a big thing the Super Bowl has become. I'm also one of those guys, Shep, and you can yell at me because Maz yelled at me for this. I'm one of those guys that I literally forget or wish that it would be a Super Bowl Saturday. I'm not going to lie. Especially when you have to get up early in the morning after staying. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I get why they don't do it, just because of the ratings. And Saturday, I bet it wouldn't get as good of ratings, and I bet people would be going out to dinner and stuff instead of ordering things in a different way. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I do like the Super Bowl Sunday. I just kind of wish it would start a little bit earlier. Just so you can have a little bit of the night. It wasn't too bad yesterday. I think it was over around 10:15 or so. So I didn't think it was too bad. But I understand why some. There's no reason to not necessarily contemplate it, because things have changed in sports all the time. I mean, we wanted the World Series during the day. It's turned into all of them at night. We've wanted certain games or certain holidays precious to us, and now sports is played constantly on those holidays. So I don't think there's anything that should be off the table per se, but I don't think you're ever going to get it on a Saturday.
Yeah. I got to take a crack at this. Which team has had the most different quarterbacks to start a Super Bowl? I think I know the answer to this. I believe it is the San Francisco 49ers with Montana, Young, Kaepernick, and Purdy.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has had four different.
I thought Miami with Greasy,
Woodley,
David Woodley,
and Marino. That's right. That's three, right?
That's four.
Who was the other one?
Greasy, who started instead of Greasy? What? No, Errol Morrill was against Greasy.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
So I think they only had
Greasy was
3.
twice. It was Greasy,
Yeah.
David Woodley, and Dan
And Marino. Yeah,
So
I think it's Frisco. It's Montana, Young, Kaepernick, and Purdy. I think it's Frisco.
So Washington had Rippon, Theismann,
Yep.
Kilmer.
Doug Williams didn't start that game. It was Schrader, right? It was Schrader.
I was just going to say Jay
Schrader started.
So
yes, so it might be 4 for Washington too.
Yeah, so I think it is 4 for Washington.
Wow, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
Yep.
I love nerd stuff like that. I'm sorry.
See, Bull says Doug Williams. He didn't start. He came in.
Yeah, I'm almost. Didn't Schrader start that game and then Williams came in?
Well, even if he didn't, Doug Williams was one of the different starters. So it's still 4 for Washington.
Yeah.
Dallas has had Craig Morton, Roger Staubach, Danny White never made there.
Never made it. As a backup, he did.
Yeah.
So that's 3.
Yeah. Patriots have Steve Grogan.
He didn't start that. Eason did. Eason, when they got hammered by the Bears, remember
Eason, 1985. You're right.
And then Grogan came in. Yeah.
Yeah. So
boy, are we nerds.
Yeah. So it's Tony Eason. It's Tom Brady. It's Drake May. Did Drew Bledsoe start one?
No.
Okay. So it's just the 3, right?
No, he did. No, you know what? He did that when they got beat by the Packers. Drew Bledsoe start that. Yeah.
So there's 4 there.
35-21? Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay. And then Green Bay's got, that's Bart Starr, Rodgers, and Favre. So that's not it.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 teams with 4 so far.
Yeah.
We've got Frisco, Washington, and we've got
Giants had Manning, Sims, Hostetler.
Correct. Yep.
Raiders, I think, had LaMonica, Stabler, Plunkett. And then what's his Rich Gannon? And then Rich Gannon.
Right. Plunkett won 2.
Yeah.
When did LaMonica lead them to a Super Bowl?
Didn't they get hammered in the second Super Bowl? I think he was the starter in the second Super Bowl.
I don't think so. I think Green Bay beat Kansas City in Super Bowl 1. Kansas City then beat Minnesota in Super Bowl 2, right?
No, Green Bay beat the Raiders in Super Bowl 2, and then the Jets beat the Colts in the guarantee.
3.
And then it was Kansas City over Minnesota in Super Bowl 4. Now I got to see who's
if the Raiders were in 2.
Yep.
Because they were in the AFL. So they were in 2. That would be LaMonica.
Yeah.
So it'd be LaMonica. It would be Plunkett, Stabler, and Rich Gannon.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah. See, I got it. It was Daryl LaMonica. Yep. Okay. Super Bowl 2. Right. Daryl LaMonica. So what do we got? 4 teams with 4 quarterbacks?
4 teams with 4 quarterbacks.
Wow, that's funny. That's funny.
What about Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh had obviously Bradshaw, Roethlisberger.
That's it. Bradshaw and Roethlisberger. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. And all the times they've been.
The Rams had Ferragamo, Warner, Stafford.
Yep.
So there's 3. I don't think there's any. Pat Hayden never led them. So.
Ferragamo came in. There's got to be somebody that we're missing. There's got to be somebody.
It's got to be a team that's been there. Like
Denver had Morton, Elway, Manning.
And
I think that's it, right? That's it. Yeah. Wow, isn't that crazy? Good question.
Colts had Johnny Unitas and Peyton Manning. That's it. Burt Jones never led him. So I think that's it. It's a great one.
What are your thoughts on the Tigers going to be on MLB Network? Why can't Detroit?
I apologize. Yeah, Neil O'Donnell did start for Pittsburgh because
Bubby O'Donnell. That's right. I used to call him Bubby O'Donnell. One of my buddies was a huge Steeler fan, and he said Bubby Brister and Neil O'Donnell are the same quarterback. So the Larry Brown, he threw
Neil O'Donnell with 3, and then he brings up the Eagles.
Jaworski,
McNabb, Hurts, and Foles.
Yeah.
There's 4 right there.
So Pete, that's good.
Wow. I didn't realize that many franchises.
How could we forget about Neil O'Donnell threw those 2 interceptions to Larry Brown?
Yep.
Easiest MVP in the history of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Good one.
What are your thoughts on the Tigers going to be on MLB Network? Why can't Detroit be like the Yankees, Mets, and have their own TV channel? Shep, I think it's going in that direction. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened already. So there's a couple of reasons, I think. First of all, you have to have people to run it.
Yeah.
Okay. The Tigers don't have anybody who has that type of executive producer broadcasting experience to do that. They used to, and Pete Scorich, who did that for the Pistons in the Palace Sports and Entertainment Group, but they don't employ him any longer. So I don't think they have anybody there. Then, your sales force would sell it, which shouldn't be an issue. You're going to have to rent all the equipment, which is fine. Where are you going to air it? You've got MLB doing it themselves. They're all hiring your local freelancers anyway. I don't know what kind of check they're going to get. Eventually, they should do it so they can keep the money. Bally was giving them a check every year for $80 million. I think it was 50 for the Tigers and 30 for the Red Wings, somewhere in that neighborhood. All right. That's a lot of money to leave on the table. Now, they weren't going to pay him that this year for Tigers and Red Wings, obviously, but that's a lot of money to walk away from potentially. You trying to do it yourself, it's easier said than done. New York has been doing it for a long, long time with the Yes Network. They have people who run that network. And by the way, they have more than just Yankee games. Okay. They have Ranger games. They have Devils games. They have programming that is pretty regular throughout. What would the programming be for a Illich Sports and Entertainment, ISE type of network? It would be the Tigers during the summer. It would be the Red Wings during the winter. What do you do after that? They do kind of overlap. So maybe there's something to be said there. I don't know. You could always throw on some, Griffins games if you wanted, if there was a night off. You could throw on, what Yes Network does, and they go back in the archives and show some great old Yankee clips and have this date in history and play past games that the Tigers may have had back in the 1970s, for example, a Mark Fidrich Monday Night Baseball game. But that's part of the reason. I'm sure it'll end up that way unless Major League Baseball takes such good care of them that they feel like there's a Big Ten network type deal that they can't turn down.
By the way, I was right. It was Frisco, and we forgot one guy, Jimmy G. Garoppolo.
Oh, good job.
Frisco with 5. Yeah, so Frisco had 5. So, yeah, that's amazing. I can't believe we just blew through this, by the way. Shep, I know before we get out of here, unbelievable college basketball and college hockey going on in the state right now. And we are long overdue for winning a title. By the way,
in either sport, right?
The last title in both sports is Michigan State, one in 2000 and the other in 2007, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah,
but
Rick Comley from Michigan State in hockey. Yeah.
Yep. So it is, I thought it at the beginning of the year, and listen, I'm one of those guys that college basketball guys like you hate, because I jump in the day after the Super Bowl and I go, yeah, man, I'm all in. I've been watching college basketball all year. Biggest lie ever. But I'm going to say this.
But I do love, thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad you brought it up.
That team is good. That Dusty May has something special. That team could go win a national championship, man. I mean that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, they could double dip. Michigan State could win it in hockey. The two hockey games, I get where college hockey ranks on your radar, but I'm telling you folks, the Friday night game in Ann Arbor that went to overtime and Michigan won it, and then for Michigan State to win the duel in the D at Little Caesars in front of close to 20,000. Why you still don't have the GLI here is beyond me, right?
And
it's really, really good for college hockey, and sometimes it's not a bad thing to understand what you're doing for a specific sport instead of always putting money in your pocket.
Yep.
The duel in the D is great. Don't get me wrong, but it sure would be nice to have some of those kids from Michigan Tech and whomever. Sometimes it was Boston, sometimes it was Providence, sometimes it was North Dakota. I used to call all those GLIs year after year and loved every second of it because those kids would come into Joe Louis Arena and look around and go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing where the Red Wings play. And you had good crowds. It was better if it was Michigan and Michigan State or Notre Dame. I understand that, but it exposes you to different styles of hockey. And I was really sad when they moved the GLI to Grand Rapids.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, Todd, Montana, Young, Kaepernick, Garoppolo, and Purdy. That was the one we forgot. And just to fact check, Jay Schrader was the starter of the majority of that season, but it was Doug Williams who started that Super Bowl.
Right.
But I remember Schrader went like 8-2 that year too. So wanted to get that out there. I love that stuff. It's so dumb. All right, Shep, Pistons as well. Why not win the East? 8 o'clock tonight. We're going to be all in, looking forward to it.
Dude, what? Maybe they're the best team in basketball. Why do we always limit them to the East?
Yep.
I mean, they have as many losses as Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City's got 2 games in hand. Well, why do we automatically assume that it's OKC that's the best team in basketball? Because they have the triple-headed monster and Detroit doesn't? Because they have the hardware from last year and Detroit doesn't? Okay, I get that maybe. But I don't think they should take a backseat to anybody for the way they've been playing. I was at that game against the Knicks. They beat the shit out of them, Sean. I mean, they steamrolled them. It wasn't even close. And then you saw what New York did in Boston yesterday. And I know Jason Tatum's going to come back for Boston, but New York beat the crap out of the Celtics in Boston. That tells you how much better Detroit is. They beat them by 30+ in both games this year.
Looking forward to it. Shep, I got to run to the little kids' room. We got to go watch the game. God bless you. At least I didn't call it the pisser. God bless you. It's always a pleasure to see you. We'll check in next week. All right?
All right.
All right. I got to go badly. I'll see you guys. Bye.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.